This is Focal Point with Brian Fisher on AFR Talk.
Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. By the way, Army admitting that they still have not even asked Bo Bergdahl why he walked off the base. They haven't even talked to him about that. They've got his back pay in an escrow account. If he's not charged as a deserter, he's going to get all of his back pay, $600,000 plus 3 promotions. And they haven't even talked to him yet about why he walked off the base. And they're not going to do this. Apparently such a delicate flower, they're not going to talk to him until his outpatient treatment in Texas is finished in about 2 weeks. So he's still under wraps, still not exposed to the public, still not available to the public. We don't even know that he's met with his family as of yet. So we'll see how all that develops. Remember the Hillary Clinton complaining about how poor the Clintons were. Bill Clinton backing up his wife. Remember, Hillary Clinton said we are not truly well off. Here's a story from The Blaze that Bill Clinton has talked openly about buying 14 Swiss watches that are listed at $550 each. Bought 14 Swiss watches at $550 a pop. So that's somebody who is truly not well off. Let me ask you, Rob and Jeff, I want to ask you guys, what is the most you have ever paid for a watch? Jeff, what's the most you've ever paid for a watch?
I've paid good money for a watch before.
Okay, I mean, like, do you not want to tell me how much?
About $300.
Okay, so you paid, and how many of those did you buy?
One.
You bought one.
Yeah, I think he might need, what does that work out to? 2 a day? One for the morning, one for the evening?
I don't know. I guess. I don't know.
Every day of the week?
I guess he changes them every other day.
Yeah.
You know, or something like that. All right, Rob, how about you? What's the most you've ever paid for a watch?
Probably a couple of $100.
Man, you guys are. Okay, Wesley, how about you? How much? What's the most that Wesley's ever paid for a watch?
He said 75. He's coming over here.
$75. All right. Now I don't know. I'm trying to think.
That was for a fossil watch. That was a big deal in junior high.
So it was a fossil watch. So you wanted to be cool, wanted to be one of the cool kids, and paid $75 for a watch.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we got, but Jeff, and how many of those watches did you buy?
Just one.
You bought one. Rob, how many of those $200 watches did you buy?
Just one. Ask me how many I wear now.
How many do you wear now?
None.
How come?
I got a phone.
Okay, just use the phone. You know, it's interesting.
I got a pen and a phone, Brian.
That makes you a scary individual, my man. Well, you know, I was talking to my son. You know, my son kind of came of age in the, graduated high school 2002, and he has never owned, well, maybe when he was, less than 10 years old, he might have had a watch. He's never owned a wristwatch in his entire life. I've never basically been without a wristwatch. I still wear one today. I even use it doing show prep because I'll glance at it very quickly just to kind of get a quick read on where I'm at and how much time I got left, because I'll have my phone in my pocket usually. But he's just always used a cell phone as his watch. I'm trying to think of the most I've ever paid. Somebody gave me a watch that probably is a couple $100 watch. He gave it to me as a favor. I helped run his shop for a while when he was in the hospital, and it's a real nice Invicta watch, probably a couple $100, something like that. Oh, it was a gift. I think the most I've ever spent, and I'm still wearing it, I think I paid like $49.95 for some Citizen type watch back in the day.
It doesn't hurt as much when you bang it against something, right?
Well, I'll tell you, that's part of it. If you got now if you got 14 of these $550 watches, then you drop one, step on one, bang it against something, and the crystal shatters. Not that big a deal. You just put on one of the other 13 that you still got. But that's part of it. If you put a lot of money into something and then something happens to it, oh, man. But a $49.95 watch I probably bought 10 years ago. I may go out and buy another one for $10 if you need to. All right, enough on that. In fact, we've got a soundbite. Let's go ahead and get that one in. I've got a Hillary Clinton soundbite. All I need is my rundown, which I think I did not print out a copy of the rundown. Let me see if I can grab it here real quick, and I can tell you the one I'm looking for. My bad, ladies and gentlemen. I forgot to print out a copy of the rundown, so I got to go to the electronic version. It's a CNN clip, and it's going to be down the list, but CNN responding to Hillary Clinton's, they're worth about $100 million now. The Clintons together worth $100 million. And so she has this thing where they're truly not well off. We just pay, this is clip number 8, Rob. We just pay ordinary taxes like ordinary people because we're not truly well off, even though my husband can buy 14 $550 Swiss watches. So here's CNN. This is clip 8. CNN talking about Hillary pleading for sympathy because they are not truly well off, even though they're worth $100 million.
And Hillary Clinton continues to promote her book and give Republicans plenty of political ammunition if she decides to run for president in 2016. Despite earning more than $100 million since they left the White House, Clinton tells the Guardian newspaper her and her husband are still, quote, not truly well off. Really? And she says they're unlike other multimillionaires because, quote, we've done it through the dint of hard work.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. This follows her comment about them struggling to afford mortgages on their estates. Critics say it's another example of Clinton being out of touch with working Americans.
So that was Allison Kosick in the background there laughing hysterically at Hillary Clinton's claim that they were not truly well off. Now, I've got a column that I've written today, and the title of the column is, Will the Rebel Alliance Strike Back by Writing in Chris McDaniel? And what I explore in this column today is the possibility, which I think is actually a pretty distinct possibility, that the grassroots Republicans in the state of Mississippi, a lot of them, the Tea Party types, a lot of them, I think, are likely to go to the polls in November and write in Chris McDaniel's name. His name will not be on the ballot. There's only going to be 2 names on the ballot, Senator Thad Cochran and Travis Childers. They'll be the only 2 names on the ballot. But there's always a write-in line. There's a line where you can write in the candidate of your choice. And I have half an idea that there are going to be a lot of Tea Party Republicans in the state of Mississippi, conservatives, that are going to go to the polls in November and they're going to write in the name of Chris McDaniel. And part of it is there is this level of outrage at what the ruling class Republicans have done to them in this primary. Now, I'm looking at a piece from, let me get the one by Eric Erickson here. Writes for a conservative website called Red State. Good guy, conservative guy. And here's what Eric Erickson, right, and we'll take calls on this. What do you think the response of the Tea Party grassroots conservatives in the state of Mississippi ought to be? Wherever you live, we've got network stations in 35 different states around the country. So this is not just for people in Mississippi, although I'd love to hear primarily from people in Mississippi, or especially, let me put it this way, especially from people in Mississippi, if the GOP establishment pulled this kind of stunt in your state, what do you think you would do to provide some kind of pushback or blowback against the ruling class Republicans for taking you so for granted? Now, here is what Eric Erickson says about what happened on Tuesday in Mississippi. It was the Republicans in Washington and their allies in Mississippi who distributed flyers to Democrats in Mississippi calling conservatives racists, Klansmen, Nazis, and so forth. And maybe you've seen pictures of that flyer. That's exactly what it did. It was a concerted effort by the GOP to beat their own base at any cost. Now, I don't want you to miss this. This was an idea that was hatched by a Republican politician from the state of Mississippi, a very well-known, highly regarded politician in the state of Mississippi hatched this plan to recruit Democrats to vote for Thad Cochran and against Chris McDaniel. And part of the appeal was to distribute these flyers in the African-American community that the Tea Party was trying to suppress the African-American vote, that the Tea Party is a bunch of racists, that Chris McDaniel is a racist, that Chris McDaniel is virtually a Grand Kleagle in the Ku Klux Klan. Now, this was hatched, realize, by the GOP establishment. This came out. This wasn't hatched by the Democrats. This plan and the strategy was cooked up by ruling class Republican elites. Now, Eric Erickson goes on. Here's the kicker. There will be no consequence if they have their way. That begs the question of whether there should be. Should the Republican establishment in Washington get away with tarring its own voters as racist? That's a good question. He says, look, if the ruling class Republicans get their way here, they're not going to pay any price for this whatsoever. They will have undermined their own candidate, a candidate from their own party. They will have submarined him. They will have resorted to what amounts to electoral fraud by persuading Democrats who are going to vote for the Democratic candidate in November, persuade them to break Mississippi electoral law by voting for a candidate that they know they're not going to support in November. That's against the law. That's voter fraud. That's electoral fraud. And the plan to take advantage of this loophole in the Mississippi laws coming from the GOP in order to undermine a candidate, a conservative Republican candidate. And so Eric Erickson says, look, should there be some consequence for the ruling class Republicans for doing this? Should the Republican establishment in Washington get away with tarring its own voters as racist? That's you and me. They're tarring us as racist. Should the Republican establishment in Washington get away with comparing its own base to Klansmen? If there is no penalty for doing so, they will keep doing it. If there is no consequence, they will attack their own base to preserve their power. They will learn no lesson. And then he goes on to talk about what some of the responses might be. He says, some of you may want to donate to Travis Childers, Thad Cochran's Democrat opponent. I cannot say that I blame you. This is Eric Erickson writing this, not me. I understand. He says, Cochran will now put the highest bidders first. GOP will carry out this tactic of calling you racist Klansmen Nazis everywhere it works. I would like to see the GOP get the majority and oust Harry Reid as leader, but I understand if you think Mississippi can still be sacrificed, I won't join you. If the GOP is allowed to get away with how they won in Mississippi, they will never really practice what they preach when it comes to limited government. There must be some consequence. I am just not sure what it should be, but I'm pretty sure it shouldn't be that the base is treated as the battered wife of the establishment. Focal Point, AFR Talk, back in 2.